World of Warcraft has a bit of a problem. Its latest expansion, Dragonflight, is doing well, according to official reports, and it's given us a lot of activities to do with a ton of rewards. However, there are more than a few complaints out there that there's not much substance to this expansion. Some would say it's a lot of quantity over quality, but where's the meaningful content? And hey, it's Soul, by the way. This is going to be one of those no B-roll sorts of videos. Think of it like a podcast. You can just listen in and tab wherever you like. So I'm going to talk for a while about this particular complaint because I happen to be looking at this from a very different angle, and I want you folks at home and elsewhere to really think this one over, because I don't think this is just about quantity or quantity versus quality. It's not just the lore or about making systems account wide to make the game better, although all that is good feedback to consider. This starts off as a very simple sounding critique, actually. So here we go. Dragonflight has given us a lot to do, and that's great. But as a whole, World of Warcraft is going to need to give players more long-term goals to work towards to feel like a compelling sort of game to log into. Because what we get in Dragonflight from patch to patch is just more of the same. So let me clarify what I mean when I mention things to do versus things to work for or to work towards. So completing quests, it's a thing to do. And so is Big 3 content, raids, dungeons, and PvP stuff. And so is queued content, as well as professions, and island expeditions, and warfronts, and Torghast. Gear is one thing to work for. It's the original thing to work for. And the activities that I mentioned are things to do for it, for gear. And over the past 19 or so years now, WoW has given us countless different activities to do to obtain gear and to smash our enemies and to earn the envy of friends, to turn them into enemies, maybe. Hello, puppy. The same logic applies to the likes of achievements and pets and mounts and titles and like transmog stuff. Take your pick and choose your passion, choose them all if that's what floats your boat. But what long tail feature did Dragonflight introduce that's something new to work towards? I'm gonna give you guys a second while I start the puppy. Okay, well, it's not professions, although it's got like a heck of a revamp and added support. I'm talking about dragon riding, or more specifically, I'm talking about mount customization. That's a new feature in this expansion. I think among fans, it's like super underrated, but in general, I think it's really cool to take your mount and customize its look and what it's wearing. And like pretty much every patch or so, we would get like an additional like mount and manuscripts and more customizations. And I'd love to see more of these special kinds of mounts long after Dragonflight. Like, what if we had a mechanical mount that we could swap parts with, or we had like this special horse that we can dress with some cool armor and maybe like hang a weapon from our transmog collection, or have it drag a wagon or a carriage behind it. Sure, let's do all of that. Mount customization is a new thing in Dragonflight that players can and are investing into, and there are activities to support it, from quests to looking for treasures and crafting and Big 3 stuff for those full-on skins. Now, of course, like all things World of Warcraft, not everyone cares, and that's very important to this sort of conversation. Historically, the World of Warcraft team they've kind of propped up new goals to work towards, and they would nudge people to care about them. But in other words, Blizzard just made it required, or they made it feel required to do. So the best and I guess worst examples of this come in the form of borrowed power. In order to like I guess for example, like in order to raid in patch 8.3 in Nyalotha, for example, players had to get a powered up cloak thing, and to do that they needed to run horrific visions, and to do that they had to go through all those motions, zone content and whatever, to run these said visions. It sucked, but it got people playing. Yay engagement. Another example would be like the garrison. In this case, we work towards developing the garrison with the expectation that it would, the work that we put into it, it would do work for us, thanks to the mission table and its many other features that we can customize. In fact, the mission table itself, that's something to work towards, again, for like a return benefit. Now, these were all systems to figure out and to make guides for, and these systems, they stayed relevant throughout that expansion before, of course, being unceremoniously dumped. Love them or hate them, we were attached to them. But in Dragonflight, there is no borrowed power to keep us anchored to a day-to-day routine. Like, that power is just in our talents now. There is no mission table. There is no sanctum to upgrade and restore. There is no garrison to build up or develop. The feedback between Warlords of Draenor and Shadowlands, that's what led us to where we are right now. In patch 10.05, we got an outdoor activity for some gear and some pets and mounts, and then we moved on. 10.1 gave us an outdoor zone for some gear and reputations and pets and mounts, and then we moved on. In the 0.5 and the current 0.7 patch, we're getting kind of more of the same before moving on again, although we are kind of recycling 10.0 content again before, again, moving on, whatever. And in 10.2, I mean, it's not out yet, I hope for a surprise, but to be honest, I'm not counting on it. You know what did follow us though? Dragon riding customizations, if you care about that. And that aside, we are getting more to do. And it is something that we can go back to years later, but once it's done, it's done. There's no need to ever go back again. We got lots of freedom in this expansion, but maybe not enough of a central focal thing to fall back on. And I think that's something that lots of players just aren't used to. They're used to the artifact weapon or the Azerite essence to be like their central focus throughout a given week or month or patch. Now, am I advocating for borrowed power to come back? Nope. Personally, no. I'm starting to see how it affects some players' psyche with it not being a thing, but still, no. For many years, we've had gear and pets and mounts and transmog and toys and titles and achievements, and that list is related to all of World of Warcraft's activities. Over the years, that lineup hasn't really changed outside of short-term systems that we stop investing our time into as soon as that expansion is over. The World of Warcraft team can come up with all sorts of new activities, or they can update old ones like the Mage Tower or the Brawlers Guild. The journey through WoW could be made more compelling with, well, good story. The rewards themselves can be made more worthwhile with, I don't know, like store quality models, whatever that means, and game systems could be more alt-friendly or account-wide or whatever. Those are all important sentiments that already have a spotlight on them, but I'm going to argue that while those improvements will make players who are already happy even happier, the way I see it, those who aren't satisfied, the where's the content players, they're going to praise the story, and then they're going to finish it and everything else at account-wide friendly speed with the fair likelihood that they're going to quickly lose interest. It's not just quantity versus quality. I mean, it's definitely a subject to discuss, but it's not today's subject. And this isn't everybody, but from observations over the past years, WoW players, they kind of need something new and refreshing to work towards. But also, when we sit down and think this over, like if we try to think up some really good ideas, it's definitely not as easy as it sounds. I mentioned dragon customizations. You, viewer, might not even agree that's even a thing to work towards because you find it totally uninteresting. You're not the only one to think that, and that's totally okay. World of Warcraft is, its players are across the entire spectrum, where every preference is a minority. A slice of this nebulous thing that we call the player base is interested in raids and or Mythic Plus and or PvP, and we go down to like outdoor questing, professions, gold making, roleplay, collections, and a heck of a lot more. It's like this jacked up Venn diagram where everything overlaps just a little bit. Dragon riding customizations, they cover people who are interested in and not limited to mounts. And some people don't even like dragon riding customizations, but they would love to customize their favorite mounts like a griffin or Mimron's head or something. WoW needs a new thing to work towards, but the only possible way to get everyone on board is to force people to do it. That's like the whole borrowed power argument in a nutshell. So what do? My primary goal here in this video is to just kind of drill it into your head, this notion of why some people continue to be dissatisfied with WoW despite a huge effort in part of the team to keep to keep us wanting one reward after another. And that some of the more popular and more talked about solutions might not be the fix that people hope for, but again, I keep saying this throughout this whole thing. These ideas still ought to be explored. I'm not trying to push something down. I'm just trying to elevate this different thought. Since mount customization is already a thing, we can use this as a jumping off point for maybe other ideas, which I won't share here, but well, let's just go beyond just dragon riding mounts. And let's introduce a whole host of base mount types like horses and wolves and, like all the mount types that are shared between the existing races. We'll just create a blank template and then start adding tons of customization, just about equal to like today's dragon riding mounts. And then put manuscripts all over the place. They could be drops, it can be crafted stuff, it could be on the trading post, any idea you can think of. Sure, that's great, do it. And now we have this new thing to work for that we can show off, like, OMG, holy heck, how'd you get that dazzling gold chain on your griffin? And hey, not everyone's a fan of this particular idea, I totally get it, but the reality, the janky-ass reality, is that in the world of Warcraft, you're never gonna get the majority of players on any one thing unless there was some sort of incentive to force them to do it. So if there's gonna be any criteria of a new game feature that players can work towards, here it is. Like, it's got to be evergreen. It's got to not really be related to player power at any competitive level. And new things like these, like a mount customization or whatever, these things need to come infrequently enough so developers can build up and support these new systems before taking a risk to add something else. Because whatever's being added, this has to be supported pretty much forever. And this is a risk. It's a lot of developer resources that are guaranteed to be a hit for just a little minority of players. In hindsight, I didn't enjoy borrowed power or expansion features that we end up leaving behind, but seeing how players are reacting to Dragonflight, I don't blame them for having gone down that road. And now that we're in Dragonflight, we're at this inflection point where a lot of evergreen features have had their pass, and the WoW team created this opportunity now to hopefully take a risk in their 10th expansion. We'll be finding out what's going to happen in less than 2 months, and I'm gassed. I think I've taken care of about everything, so now your thoughts. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.